I'm Jeremiah,
And I'm Brandon.
and
Welcome to the Cross the Constitution podcast.
Oh, it's the cross and the Constitution, faith and freedom in a grand solution, legacy of hope and the law of the land, building a house on the solid sand, finding the balance in the heart of the fight, walking the path of the morning light.
How's it going, guys? Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Crossing Constitution podcast.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about the SPLC and them taking money as an anti-racist group and using it to fund racism. I know that sounds crazy, but they're a left-leaning liberal group. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the Trump assassination attempt and a little bit of news on Iran.
Yep. So with the SPLC, that is the Southern Poverty Law Center. They were founded in the 70s to kind of confirm or better establish the civil rights movement, to try to quote unquote
combat racism.
Yeah. So a few days ago, on the 21st, they were indicted on several different counts of fraud and money laundering. So I'm just going to read this off here. Let's see here. So they have been indicted on fraud charges for use of paid informants to monitor and track racist organizations. And this indictment was actually handed down by a grand jury in Alabama, where the organization is based. They've been indicted, 11 counts, including wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. So,
we actually have a list here of where some of their money went. Oh, this is crazy, guys.
Yeah.
This is a group that raises money because they're trying to combat racism and white supremacy. But here's where their money went. The National Alliance, which is a white supremacist group, 1 million plus. The Aryan Nations, we all know, if anybody's been around people in prison,
Yep.
The Aryan Nations they're pretty hardcore. They're mostly prison gangs. Outside of prison, they have, a little bit of influence, but mostly in prisons.
Right.
But 300K plus. Unite the Right, which is another white supremacist organization, 270K plus. The former National Alliance chairman got over 140,000. The former KKK members got over 73,000. And American Front president and convicted felon, 19,000. So they're not just handing out, hey, here's a couple $100, go cause some trouble. This is major money.
Right. So it looks like the FBI director, Kash Patel, let's see here, he said that the organization paid at least 8 people, including those affiliated with violent extremist groups like the KKK and Nazi organizations, at least $3 million between 2014 and 2023. That's a lot of money for a group that's supposed to be combating racism.
Yeah. And trust me, to KKK members and the Aryan Nation and these neo-Nazi organizations, they were pretty much a bunch of rednecks living in the woods with their little group. So this is big time money to them.
Yeah. Pretty much they created this organization, realized that the country really didn't have a whole lot of racism that they said it did, or to the extreme that they said it did, rather. And so they just funded a way of manufacturing it so it existed for them to not close their doors.
I specifically remember Joe Biden as president saying that the biggest threat to American democracy was white supremacy. Even though I haven't seen any white supremacy in my everyday life.
No.
And I live in Alabama.
Yeah.
You just don't see it around here.
Speaking of Joe Biden, wasn't he pictured shaking hands with the Grand Wizard?
Oh, he done the eulogy of one of the main members of a white supremacist group.
Yeah. So it's just the fact that they are having to pretty much manipulate the ideal of racism being to the extreme that it is or that
Yeah.
it was for self benefit.
Because if there really was that much racism and like white supremacy organizations going on in the United States, they wouldn't have to be funding it. They could just point to it and say, "Hey, look at this organization." But apparently, there's not that much of it, or they wouldn't be having to fund it to build it up.
Yep. Yeah, it says in 1971 they were founded to fight white supremacist groups. Let's see here.
And hey, in 1971, they may have had a case.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
I'll second that because I mean,
yeah,
during that time frame, and mind you, there are still people from that generation
yeah,
that did grow up that way, and that's just how they are.
yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that racism is not a thing
No,
by
it
any
definitely
means.
is. Yeah. But is it a threat to our democracy?
I don't believe it is. Don't believe it. Well, okay. Actually, I think that it could be a possible threat based off of what they're doing to
Yeah.
make it a
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, because they're making it a threat. Yeah.
You know, so it's just I don't know. I guess it depends on how you look at the world and the people of it. But
And I know a lot of people remember the whole Charlottesville protest. A lot of these groups were involved in it, the National Alliance, and come to find out, Southern Poverty Law Center was funding that too, which was a huge detriment to President Trump's first administration. Now, I know y'all remember the whole hoax of him saying there was good people on both sides. Well, that's not exactly what he said. He said, except for the neo Nazis and the racists, he's like, I condemn them 100%. But other than them, there were some good people on both sides of the argument, which is fair to say. I mean,
yeah, that's just I don't know. I still can't get behind trying to defend like if this was done for a legitimate reason, and once again, if it was done back then for a legitimate reason,
right?
I'm not trying to discredit that.
No,
If it
I'm
was
all for there being less racism in the
right,
world. I mean, really.
yeah,
But when you're funding it and it's all a sham, like how can we know that any racist organization now or any racial protest or anything like how do we even know it's organic now? How do we even know it's real?
yeah,
When we've got evidence right here of a left leaning group funding it.
yeah, and that's what the left has tried to do for years, especially throughout media outlets, is try to create something
Yeah.
to pit us against each other, and this is showing that.
The George Floyd riots in 2020. I don't know what's the cop out of line that put his knee on the back of his head. It's debatable, but is it worth an uprising? Is it worth? That's one instance. Is it worth burning down cities over? No.
Right.
No, the man was a drug addict. He was resisting arrest. I mean, was the way it was handled okay? I don't know. I mean, I can see both sides of that situation.
Right.
But was it racially motivated? I honestly don't think so. I think it was a cop that was tired of drug addicts getting their way, and I'm an ex-drug addict. I can speak to this personally. I understand what drugs do to you, and the man had enough fentanyl in his system to kill him. So when he's being belligerent, I mean, if you do what an officer says when you're pulled over or when you're stopped, then you don't have a chance of being assaulted or shot. It's when you're resisting, when you're making a big fuss for no reason.
Right. Because and I hate hearing that argument, but it's like, okay, I'm not going to mention his name, but I have a coworker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he does not like law enforcement. Some of the things that he has done, he's put himself in situations to be looked at a certain way by law enforcement. Because especially in a little small town like ours, you know, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
But you know, he had a situation where he had passed a sheriff's deputy on the side of the road one night, who had somebody else pulled over, in which, according to him, I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there, but according to him, he slowed down and merged over into the oncoming lane to pass. That way, everybody was safe. And that officer proceeded to turn around and yell at him to slow down, in which he then yells back out his windows, and
Not necessary.
that's not necessary. So then what does the cop do? Well, he goes and pulls him over.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Okay. He then pulls him over. And he asks for his license, in which he holds his license up and would not give his license to the officer. He would not let go of it. The officer pulls him out of the vehicle because he's
you're
failing.
not obeying a lawful command.
Correct. So he pulls him out of the vehicle and starts searching him and all kinds of other stuff. So now, because of some of the things that have been said in between the two of them, it's created this altercation that should have never transpired.
Right.
And all that done is put not only the officer on edge, but also him.
Mm-hmm.
One thing led to another. I don't know the full ins and outs of everything. Once again, I was not present. However, it did end up with my coworker being body slammed by this police officer
Oh yeah, they'll do it.
and put in handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it ended up, you know, they ended up letting him go. Everything kind of remotely calmed down enough to like de-escalate and move on. But the moral of the story is, you know, if an officer is giving you any form of a lawful directive to do something, and you combat that,
Yeah, because if they're in the wrong, you'll have your day in court.
correct. That's what it's there for.
Because I've been on both sides of that. I've been on the side of, hey, I've dealt with cops where I've been in the wrong and they've been great. Hey, you know, give me the benefit of the doubt. That's great. And I've also been on the side where I know I was in the right and the police officer was in the wrong, but I didn't try to take it out on the cop or try to be belligerent or, you know, try to run or try to fight back against the police officer. No, I still obeyed the commands, and then I can present my case in court.
Right.
So
yeah, you know, it just, if you're ever in a situation. Now, I'm not saying that there's not certain officers out there, because there's one
bad groups of
exactly.
everybody. Yeah.
And you know, I've heard from occasionally I get on YouTube and watch certain First Amendment audit videos. You know, some of them I watch just to laugh at, because some of them do just rile up stuff even more for no reason. But I remember watching this one guy, and you know, after dealing with an irate police officer who didn't know the law, and him backing himself up on that, he had another good officer step in and de-escalate the entire situation, explain to that officer that he was incorrect, and explain that this guy was doing, you know, what the Constitution protects him to do.
Yeah.
In which he proceeds to tell that cop that stepped in, you know, hey, you know, I really appreciate that, especially, you know, in the law and all that. You know, a good cop's worst enemy is a bad cop.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because all that does is make the rest of the department, the rest of
the bad apple scenario,
anybody wearing a badge, makes them look to the outside that they're all in one, you know. And I can assure you, it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
I have a form of law enforcement experience in my past, and you know, I can definitely attest that there are some instances, but it's, you know, a lot of stuff is also taken out of context in the heat of the moment. But also in that same breath, you know, just be a good person.
Yeah.
You know, but once again, if you're pulled over even if you are in fear that something is going to happen, the best thing you can do is just follow the lawful
Yes.
orders that are being given.
And you can turn on your camera, turn on your phone,
Sure.
set it down, and say, "Hey, I'm filming. Just letting you know, but don't be hostile
Yeah. Yeah.
with the police officer.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but he's got all the weapons. He's gonna win.
Yeah. Because and at the end of the day, they really do not care what the color of your skin is.
No.
If you are doing something wrong that gave them the reason to stop you, it doesn't matter what color you are.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't matter, just do what you're asked to do. And once again, like he said, if it is something that is unlawful, instead of trying to sit there and fight that on the scene, just get
Yep.
it over with, be done, have your day in court, and battle
Yep.
it then. That's what
That's
it
what the
is
court
there
system's
for.
for. Yeah.
So, I seen this just a second ago. Let's see here. The SPLC said the program was kept quiet to protect the safety of informants that they were working with. They began working with informants. We were living in the shadow of the height of the civil rights movement, which had seen bombings at churches, state-sponsored violence against demonstrators, and the murders of activists that went unanswered by the justice system. Why
Like
does
I said,
that?
in the 70s, I would
Yeah,
agree with it. They're probably needed.
right, but why do you still feel the need to pay
Yeah,
somebody?
This is 2026. Like and in the past 10 years, you're paying these millions of dollars to these organizations who haven't blown up anything or even
Yeah,
been relevant in the last 20 years,
right.
30 years,
Yeah.
probably longer than that.
Let's see here.
These groups just aren't relevant anymore in society.
Well, this says something about Charlie Kirk in here. Jesse faced intense. Charles policies around. Okay, that's just something that's not really important.
So what do you think about this assassination attempt? It's correspondence and enter.
Well, for the fourth time now, I think it was absolutely dumb. That's
Yeah.
what I think ultimately. But I also think that, considering that the left says that they're all about peace and, all this, that, and the third.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of evidence.
You
of
look
peace.
at all this stuff that's going on. 9 times out of 10, it's from a radical liberal. That's
How many times in the last 20 years have we had a Democratic president get assassination attempts against?
yep.
At least from conservatives.
Right. Yeah, that's.
I mean, our biggest spokesman for the conservative Christian movement was Charlie Kirk. When he was killed, unlike George Floyd, we didn't burn down any cities.
Right.
We didn't go out and torch cars or burn down businesses or throw bricks through windows or.
Yeah.
What do? We held a prayer vigil.
Yeah.
We've done a memorial service, and since his death, I've seen the head of state, Marco Rubio, and the vice president, J.D. Vance, and several people talk more openly about Jesus than I've heard from anybody in government.
Yeah.
In recent years.
Yeah. I mean, go back and look at the halftime show that they put on.
Oh yeah.
Kid Rock.
Yeah, I know. Of all
that
people.
blew my mind.
And yes, no, Kid Rock's not a perfect person. He's
Right.
probably not the person I would have picked. But let me tell you something. Look throughout history of the people that Jesus used, the people that God used throughout the Bible. Oh man, we're so not perfect people. Yeah. Not even close. They were some of the roughest groups you'll ever find.
Yeah. I mean, Paul, he persecuted.
Oh man, he was killing Christians. Yeah. Stoning Christians to death. Yeah.
So I mean,
God's going to use who He's going to use,
yep.
and it's not. I don't think it's for us to question that.
Right.
Do I think Kid Rock is the poster boy for Christianity? No, but do I think God's using him for a purpose?
Absolutely.
Same with Trump.
Yeah.
Do I think Trump is a poster boy Christian? No. He says crazy stuff and outlandish things and curses but you can say that throughout the Bible for a lot of these kings that God put forth and God ordained and that God used uh, Cyrus in the Bible, that was the king when David was captive. Not David, but Daniel was captive. Uh, he released the Jews to go back and rebuild their temple. He was a pagan, but God used him for his purpose.
Yep.
And I feel like God's using this current administration. I know I've heard this administration have more open prayer, more reading of scripture, and more just outright speaking about Jesus Christ than I've heard any administration in my lifetime.
They literally have been doing the week-long read of the Bible.
Yeah.
It's 12 hours a day,
Yeah.
several different people involved with that. I have never seen that from any other president in my lifetime.
No, me either.
You know, I've never seen that. You know, so
I've heard presidents use scripture,
yeah,
and even have prayer, open prayer, but not to this degree. No,
right.
I think there's a revival coming. I hope there's a revival coming.
Yeah, but I mean, kind of something that goes towards the shooting last night. For starters, the shooter was a teacher from California that was supposed to be this fantastic guy. You know, he was teacher of the month not that long ago, or you know, just outstanding human being. Yet, because he's got a certain opinion that differs from somebody else's certain opinion, he thinks it's okay to go and try to take someone else's life, which he also did shoot a cop. Yeah. Thank God that cop did not get injured.
Got his vest held.
I mean, you know, that could have went way worse.
Oh,
you know, it could have turned into a mass casualty shooting, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So, you know, so what I was going to get at, you know, we see the Democrats and everybody on the left pushing so hard for gun control and, you know, cracking down harder on that. But we actually just saw someone who said the perfect thing.
Nick Freitas. Shout out to Nick Freitas.
How about instead of trying to enforce stricter gun control laws, you just enforce stricter self-control?
Yep.
That's what it boils down to.
A gun's only a tool. I've never seen a gun shoot anybody without somebody pulling the trigger.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah, you know, that bullet didn't just miraculously leave the chamber.
No, they don't usually
by itself. I mean, I'm not saying that there's some instances that some weird thing doesn't happen.
Yeah, you drop a gun or something, but a gun just laying here by itself is not going to fire.
Person behind the gun.
Yeah, if they'll you know, exercise a little self-control, maybe.
I'm not saying that some things couldn't be adjusted as far as, like, you know, if you were like
the mental illness part is one thing we've got to deal with.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
If you're on certain medications for certain illnesses, you should not have a firearm.
Right. But that doesn't mean that you like completely prohibit the purchase of firearms from the rest of the general population just because.
First of all, when you enact a gun law, it's only the law-abiding citizens that law affects.
Right.
Criminals are not going to pay attention to your laws. They're going to get a gun wherever they want to get one.
Just because you enforce this here doesn't mean that you can't go down the street to Antoine and buy, you know, you know what I mean? Like, you're never going to be able to fully enforce that. And I mean, if you do, you're just infringing on our rights.
Yeah.
You know, we're protected by the Second Amendment on that.
Here's something to think about. A driver's license is not a right; it's a privilege.
Correct.
Gun ownership is a right.
Yeah.
By our Constitution. Okay, so I can get a driver's license in Alabama, and it's good anywhere in the country, right? I can buy a gun and have a gun permit, but it's only good for my state.
Yeah, it's crazy.
When it's a right, and the driver's license is a privilege.
Yeah. that's
Anyway, just something to think about.
yeah. So yeah, that that whole. Once again, I'm not saying that certain adjustments shouldn't be made, as long as it does not take away from what the Constitution protects
Right.
us to have.
Which is a legal gun owner having his guns. Yeah.
So, but as far as some stuff going on in Iran and all that, really hasn't been a whole lot this past week.
No, not a lot.
Major. Some people thought that Trump was getting ready to push that button,
Yeah.
but he extended the ceasefire agreement for a few days, in which he then to give them more time to come up with something to bring to the table for negotiations. And
Strait of Hormuz is open and it's closed.
yeah,
Open 5 minutes later and
Yeah.
it's closed. So.
It's only open for this purpose.
According to Iran, anyway. But I think we got pretty much got control of it now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Pete Hegseth just came out and said that not only do we have a complete, fully operational blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, but we also have a global blockade for anyone doing business with Iran.
Yep.
Like he actually said how they went out and intercepted 2 other ships that had made it out prior to the blockade being fully placed in effect.
Imagine that. We sanctioned Iran, and of course they've been sanctioned for years.
Yeah.
And yet this president's actually doing something about it.
Yeah.
Like this blockade's not okay. They've been sanctioned for years, even though Russia's still buying oil from them, China's still buying oil from them. Got somebody now that's saying, no more.
Yep. And which, China gets it at such a discounted rate because they're giving them all these different forms of technology, weaponry, and, they had agreed to not continue sending weaponry to Iran. I think they're kind of publicly.
Yeah.
I think
China's gonna play dirty.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that there definitely needs to be some discussion on that.
Yeah. Hey, we got an abundance of oil now. Come buy it from us.
Yeah, absolutely.
At market value.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll take it. We'll take it. But yeah. But Trump also canceled the peace talks.
Yeah.
So
stopping JD Vance from going back again for what, the third, fourth time to Pakistan to
attempt to
negotiate. I'm like, oh, good.
Yeah, because I mean, what is the point?
They're just making us spin our wheels.
Exactly.
Like, I mean,
we're having to spend money just to go over
fly
there
people over there
for absolutely no purpose. What is the point of sending people over there to discuss something that they still have no interest in, coming to a middle ground on?
It's like, hey, for right now, if they want to have peace, they can give us a call.
Yeah.
If they don't want to have peace, they're going to lose their phone signal in a little while anyway.
Yeah.
When he wipes out their power plants and bridges.
And I mean, he's been very graceful as far as that comes, because I mean,
probably more graceful than I would be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he could have at the drop of the dime.
Make a deal.
Yeah, he does, and
that's what he ultimately wants is a deal. He didn't want to have to go in there and wipe them out.
And everybody keeps, especially on the left, talking about, oh, Trump's he's deranged, he's out of his mind. All he wants is war. He talks about ending wars, yet he created one, and yada yada yada. Well, for starters, he didn't create this war. This is something that's been progressing for 47 years.
You can blame Obama and Biden for this one.
Right.
Every time we choke out their monetary or sanction their money and lock down their money, that Biden would fly them out billions in the middle of the night, or Joe Biden would lift the sanctions on their money and give it back to them. So
right. So
could have all been avoided.
Right. Yeah. Plain and simple.
Very easily.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we've got a president that he don't just talk. He has action.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, now I feel like some of his critics are going to go on here and be like, oh, well, he said that he was gonna blow up their bridges and power
Mhm.
plants, but he's yet to do that. He's got cold feet. Yada yada. Okay, I'm. Have you seen the man and what he did to ISIS and
Yeah,
how
wait.
quick he did that?
Pick one. Is he a drains killer or is he backing off? Which one is
Yeah,
it? So
exactly.
it don't matter what he does. If he goes in and bombs them, oh, he's crazy. He's a lunatic. But if he makes a deal with them, they're like, oh, Trump caved again.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
can he do anything to make you happy? No, the answer is no.
It's not the fact that he's making correct decisions that they disagree with. It's the fact that Donald Trump is the one that's doing it and they hate him so
Yep.
much, and it doesn't matter what decision he makes. The left is going to do anything and everything that they can to slander that man's name.
Yep.
That's it.
Orange man bad. That's their whole political ticket.
But yeah, so you know,
They don't have any ideas on how to fix it. It's just not Trump's wrong.
yeah, it doesn't matter what he does.
Mm-mm.
Anything and everything that he does, you know, it doesn't matter. So, um, once again, there really wasn't a whole lot to discuss going on this week.
Stay tuned. We'll have you more here in a few days.
Yeah, we're looking to obviously as other things unfold, we're hoping to cover some of that. Especially now that we got Brandon back in the mix.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yep. But
Mostly here.
Yeah. But so yeah, we're gonna do some more discussions on stuff as they come out, and we do have another what we feel is going to be a very very interesting video that will probably get posted tomorrow,
Mhm.
maybe Tuesday. We'll decide on that. We've still got some things to work out on it, but very big topic. We think it's going to be.
It'll be interesting.
It's definitely going to be interesting to say the least. So you know,
It's less political and a little more on the faith leaning side on the Shroud of Turin.
right. So you know, until something else happens, you know, we're just kind of here waiting it out, riding it out with the rest of you. So you know, once again, we appreciate the support. Be sure to like, subscribe, drop a comment.
Send us your ideas.
Absolutely.
Send us your thoughts on what we talked about.
Right.
We'll definitely check into those and maybe even use one of your comments as a segment.
Yeah, absolutely. Share this with others. You know, we can't continue to do what we do without it reaching.
Yeah.
You know, and we know we're still small now, but you know, like we said from the jump, we are not just wanting to cover things on the political spectrum. We're wanting to also relate some of what's going on in today's times to the Bible and what that tells us. And at the end of the day, all we want to do is bring glory to God. And so yeah, just make sure you share this with others. And until next time, we'll see you then.